Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Reviews, with your host, Arlyeon. On today's episode, I'll be talking about the new title in Frictional Games' vaunted horror franchise, namely Amnesia Rebirth. Find out if I thought this game was a bundle of joy, or if Frictional's return to Amnesia was a tragic stillbirth. Narratively speaking, your introduction to Rebirth is much in the same vein as its predecessors, given you find yourself marooned and alone within a matter of moments and lacking key memories of what exactly happened. That said, a key difference rests in the location you find yourself stranded. You're smack dab in the middle of a desert, as opposed to the midnight city and desolate chateau that served as the setting for the earlier games. Well, that and the fact that our protagonist, Trilogy, is an expectant mother, a development that complicates her attempts to navigate both the natural rigors of the desert, as well as the eldritch horrors that lie in wait. Recap aside, I was pretty fond of the story. I enjoyed the process of advancing forward and slowly piecing together what happened to Tossi's expedition crew, both from the bits of narrative that were directly fed to me through radio calls or story scenes, as well as the less obvious elements. Really, it's these optional elements that served as my main motivation to explore, since a large part of the game's world building was contained within optional notes hidden about its various areas, as well as details which helped to further flesh out the expedition members. That and just metering about increased the odds of finding a location that could trigger a memory sequence, which essentially served as flashbacks to help to fill in what happened when Tossi got blackout drunk, or whatever it was that caused her to develop laser-guided amnesia. And I'll thoroughly suggest doing this because it will also help to inform your decision about the endings, as I felt the supporting lore served to help build up significance for the choices you're presented with. That, and to make them a bit less ambiguous than they would be otherwise. I will say, however, as much as there was some degree of nuance in the endings, the game has all the subtlety of a sledgehammer when dealing with the pregnancy subplot. Something that becomes especially noticeable later on when the gameplay slows down in order to prolong an already uncomfortable storytelling segment. Still, I can't knock the gameplay at large, given that Rebirth not only manages to be creepy, it's also a genuinely solid puzzling exploration title. There's actually a decent amount of variety between all the ones available, such as the physics puzzles, which test a player's attentiveness and ability to improvise solutions, as well as more traditional puzzles which will see them fussing over esoteric devices. That said, whilst they do represent neat moments over the course of your explorations, a larger portion of your time is simply spent navigating the hostile environments you found yourself in, as you retrace your steps and that of the rest of your crew members, ignoring the fact that striding in the sun will cause your skin to sizzle louder than bacon. It's a pretty scenic journey at first, with a focus on exploring for lore. Well, that and the supplies necessary to hold the darkness at bay, such as lantern oil or matches. Because, really, no Amnesia game is complete without cowering in darkness, unsure if it's safe to shine a light due to what might be lurking near, even as your sanity erodes away. Unfortunately, the sanity system isn't quite as harrowing this time around, as they eschewed the hallucinations of earlier titles in favor of a sanity system that's synonymous to health. That's right, lingering in darkness and encounters with creatures both serve to drain your sanity, and should it drain enough, Tassie will briefly enter a fugue state and escape from the situation. Which is essentially a fancy way to say you hit a game over screen and now you're sent back a little bit with any items you may have found. Which is notably less harrowing than, say, being murdered by the water demon. Overall, it's a pretty forgiving system, though that also meant I found myself less prone to panicking when I encountered the creatures, for the most part. Even knowing what I did, Rebirth still did manage to instill dread and anxiety with a few of its encounters as I progressed, which helped to keep me on my toes whenever I started to get too comfortable. And with that said, we've reached the segment where I need to talk about the visuals, and well, this game is just a visual treat with just some really uncanny and disconcerting imagery to be discovered. And the game's audio is stellar. I mean this in regards to the quality of the voice acting, the musical tracks which accompany your journey, but also very much the sound effects. I cannot count the number of times I found myself being put on edge, not due to the half-cut glimpses of something scurrying around a corner or a crack in the wall, though those did fuck with me, but because I heard something getting closer. I heard it scuttling, I heard its breath. So yeah, it's on this note that we arrive at our conclusion, and all in all, I do have a few things to say here. First off, for people who have followed the franchise, this does have its place. On a narrative level, it not only serves to tell its own story, it also further fleshes out the lore of the first game, filling in a number of blanks. Yes, the narrative of the child did occasionally get on my nerves, but that was mostly due to certain elements of gameplay as it progressed. On an emotional narrative level, there was definitely some major feels to be found by exploring her interpersonal relationship with her crew and the soon-to-be nascent kid. That said, when it comes to ambience, I did find this game leaned a bit harder on both startling the player and maintaining certain degrees of high tension as opposed to the slower burn of the first game. All in all, I found myself quite fond of Rebirth, enough so that I do view it as a worthy sequel to Amnesia The Dark Descent, and enough so that I'd call it a hit. P.S. A Machine for Pigs wasn't an Amnesia game, changed my mind. Anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say to me, feel free to comment. If you have an interest in supporting my efforts to create new indie reviews, interviews, and gaming content, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when there's a new release. Also, a Discord link in the description, which you can become a part of our community, the Crit Hit Cauldron. That said, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then, folks.